Hello knitters! The last part of my tutorial on how to knit LOPAPEYSA sweater, also known as Icelandic sweater or round-yoke sweater. This time we take the next techniques, decreasing stitches, neck rib and how to bind off stitches using a needle, seal armholes, hide the thread ends, and finally how to rinse and dry off the sweater. First of all, I want to inform you that I changed the final pattern to make it easier to knit and to demonstrate. Just don't be confused if you suddenly see not the same pattern I'm working on as in the previous videos. Making patterns is not the simplest task, so I hope for your understanding. There are a couple of methods I'm gonna show you today. Let us look at the pattern and see how decreasing looks like. In most of the patterns you will see a special key or symbol showing you where to decrease stitches. Here you have a K2 talk, which means knit 2 stitches together, and a key SSK, which is slip slip knot. If you have a pattern with decreases from both sides simultaneously, you use both methods. But if your pattern decreases one time from one side, then from another side, the method you choose is not really that important. In this method, you simply knit 2 stitches together like this. In my pattern, I will use only this method because I don't need to decrease evenly from both sides of the pattern. The stitch eventually inclines to the left. Another way is slip slip knot. You see the stitch is not open to me, it faces away from me. I insert a needle and change the direction of the first stitch and then the second one. Now they're turned to my direction. I pick them together and knit as one. The stitch inclines to the right. Following the pattern, I gradually decrease stitches on my needles until I reach the last row. I change my needles down to the size 4.5 mm, knit the last row and decrease stitches at the same time. Then I do simple rib as one knit, one purl stitch. Don't try to knit it too tight, even if the neck hole is big enough. I don't think you want to feel choked every time wearing a sweater. I will knit around 5-6 rows and start preparing it to binding off. To make our rib looking nice and elastic, I need to knit 3 rows that will be slightly different. Row 1. In this row, all knit stitches are the same, but purl stitches will be just moved to another needle. The thread is in front of it. Look what I'm doing. I do knit stitch, then pick up purl stitch and move it to the right needle, leaving the thread in front. Repeat the whole row. Row 2, almost the opposite. I move the knit stitch to another needle, leaving the thread behind, and then I do purl stitch. That's the way we do the whole row of the rib. Row 3 is absolutely the same as row 1. Knit the first stitch as we knit it normally. Purl 1 is to be moved to another needle with a thread in front of it. I'm ready with preparations, and now finally it's time to use a needle. Before I start, I need to set a purl stitch to be the first one, simply making the knit stitch so that it's on the right needle. Then I take a plastic needle and leave the thread end about 2-3 times longer than the neck length. The whole process of binding off I'll divide into 3 steps. Step 1. I insert the needle into a purl stitch, then make the way round like this to bring the thread to the front. Step 2. I pick up the left side of the knit stitch from the right. Look, here's the loop. I insert right to the left into this loop and the knit stitch which is next to the purl stitch. Step 3. Again I insert the needle into the purl stitch, but this time back to front, and tighten it slightly up. Now we can release both stitches. The only thing is to find this right tension, so stitches are not too tight but also not too loose and they are not sticking out. We do repeat with the next 2 stitches the same. Step 1. Insert the needle into a purl stitch, make the way round and bring the thread to the front. Step 2. Pick up the left side of the knit stitch and insert right to the left into this loop and the knit stitch which is next to the purl stitch. Step 3. Insert the needle into the purl stitch, back to front and tighten it up. We do repeat the steps until we release all stitches. The last step is to connect both ends. I imitate the previous steps, finding a stitch I can insert the needle to, then connect 2 stitches from both sides and pull out the needle from the wrong side to hide it in the rib stitches. The rib is ready, it's supposed to be elastic and very good looking. I still have open armholes which I need to join, The main idea is to make it as much invisible as it's possible. I take approximately 2-3 times longer thread, insert it in the needle and find the first stitch. I see that they are lost here while I was knitting the sweater, and therefore I'm using my crochet to help myself lifting them up. It's quite meticulous work but you will definitely be rewarded when you see how accurate it looks at the end. I try to repeat the same way the thread does every row. The needle goes down to the first stitch, as you see the stitch is not twisted, and then it goes up from the next stitch. I do the same with stitches on the opposite side. Down to the first stitch and up from the next stitch. Step by step, breathing slowly, patiently picking up loops, finding the right side. My yarn is too heavy and therefore causes a bit extra work for me. At the moment, maybe the idea is not that clear, but I'm doing a couple of stitches more. You see the way needle dancing in between stitches repeats the way all rows are linked with each other. Once you get the idea, you will be able to link any holes in your knitwear without problems. The most interesting in this is to seal the very corners of this armhole, but it's not that difficult how it might look. Basically, I just keep finding stitches that logically continue this row and hide ends inside. First, I hide the thread ends. You can just entangle them in between loops or try to repeat loops in order to imitate their waving like I'm showing it here. Look carefully. The trick is to find stitches that are too big and tighten them up by spreading the thread evenly throughout the neighbor stitches. Here, for example, I see that some stitches are too big. I pull them a bit out and distribute the lengths, stitch by stitch, until all big loops are well distributed. You can just watch how I'm doing it. Hiding the thread of the rib is the simplest one. I just pull out the thread end through the edge of the rib and cut the rest of it. I got holes in between the rows where I had introduced new colors or finished with previous ones. I need to connect loose ends, tighten and hide them. I will untangle the thread the same way of imitating loops as I did in the armholes. The paths you can see clearly when I use a thread of another color. I do the same with all ends here. Where you have the pattern, you can repeat doing the same to hide the ends and the stretches, but the simplest way is to just untangle the end every loop. Choose any method you like more. I also have some knots where I connected the yarns. Basically, the idea is the same. I untie the knot and hide the ends. I do rinsing in lukewarm water around 30 degrees and let it drain a little. The main reason is to let all stitches settle evenly. In case if your knitting is too tight in places with the pattern, after rinsing you can stretch them a bit to adjust the size. After gentle squeezing out the water, I put the sweater on a flat surface and something that will absorb excessive water. Or you can also squeeze it using a dry towel and roll, and then put it on a flat surface to dry, which is an important part of this process. After 2-3 days, depending on how warm and humid the room you placed it in, the sweater will dry off completely and ready for the final step. I I know not everyone irons woolen clothes afterward, but I do. Here's my piece of thin cloth I use for ironing. I set the iron on 2 with steam, and then very gentle without pushing I start ironing. After ironing, sweaters don't look bulky anymore, especially in parts with the patterns and the creasing. This way I help my sweater to look decent and accurate. The sweater is ready now. I hope this tutorial will be helpful for you who wants to knit your own LOPAPEYSA or make a present for someone. Send your like to this video or subscribe to my channel to find more tutorials in the future. Next video I will introduce you to 3 patterns of LOPAPEYSA that you can download and try yourself. Thanks for your attention and see you in next video.